Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Alexandra Atalla, and I'm joining on behalf of UNDP's Food and Agricultural Commodity Systems community, known as the FACS community. I'm based in Portugal. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. You can type your name, your organization, and where you're joining us from. So today's event is co-hosted and organized jointly with Evidensia and with, of course, UNDP's FACS community under the Food Systems Land Use and Restoration Impact Program, which is a GEF-funded World Bank-led impact program. So I would like to introduce our moderator. So Naomi Black, who's the Associate Manager for Impact and Evidence at ISEAL, will be moderating today's session. And shortly, I will hand over to her. So she will introduce the topic of our event today and also our speakers. In the meantime, I wanted to mention that this event is recorded. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat box throughout the session. So if you have any questions about the content, the presentations, please feel free to put them directly in the chat box. And lastly, we also have interpretation both in Spanish and in French. So for those of you who would like to listen to the content of the event in those languages, you can go to the respective interpretation channels, and we'll post the instructions in the chat box in a minute. So with this, welcome again, everyone, and over to you, Naomi.
Thanks very much, Alex. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome, everyone. I'm speaking to you from a very chilly London. Hope it's a bit hotter where you are. And thank you for joining this valuable showcase session. As Alex said, my name's Naomi Black. I'm the lead for the Evidensia program, which is a platform for research on the impacts and effectiveness of supply chain initiatives. Now, if we just go to the next slide. I'll introduce a little bit our session today. So today we're exploring inclusive digital agriculture, a topic really at the heart of transforming food systems. Agriculture remains one of the least digitized major industries, yet digital innovations hold enormous promise. Tools like mobile payment systems, weather apps, and e-commerce platforms are already helping smallholder farmers access markets, reduce transaction costs, and improve livelihoods. But while these technologies can boost productivity and create new opportunities, they also pose risks. And without an inclusive approach, digitalization can deepen existing divides, especially for women, youth, and marginalized rural communities. Challenges such as limited connectivity, affordability, and digital literacy mean that benefits often flow to those who are already advantaged. And digital transformation in the sector may be inevitable, but its success really depends on a nuanced approach that considers equitable outcomes in terms of all actors. So Lara, if you just go to the next slide. Today's showcase event will focus on what's going on to make sure that as many agri-food chain actors as possible can benefit from the digital revolution. So we'll explore what the major trends have been and what they're pointing to. Then we'll zoom in to see what's been happening in Kenya before we take a look at international coordination on the topic. So first for that, we'll have a look at a technology transfer triangle between Africa, Brazil, and the UK. And then we will look at adoption of digital tools for smallholder farmers and global financing mechanisms to support it. We'll have 2 moments for short Q&As, but please do submit your questions in the chat and our speakers will try to address as many as they can during or after the session. We're delighted to introduce a real glut of speakers for today's session. So First, we have Katharina Schroeder from the World Bank. She will give our opening keynote presentation, which will set the stage for today's session. Next, we're pleased to have Simon Mulwa from the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, KALRO. Following Simon, we'll hear from Chioma Ezunaka and James Kayam, representing the UK-AgriTech Centre. And rounding out our group are Gladys Morales from the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and Mara Bellestrini from LNET Global. And together their expertise will shine a real light on several corners of this truly vast topic. But first, we'd like to get to know you a little bit. So if we go to, thanks Laura, and if we launch our poll for today, we'd like to know, what is your current involvement in using or supporting inclusive digital farming solutions? So a poll window should have automatically popped up on your screen. You can select your answer and click submit. The results should appear automatically, but I can tell you that there seems to be an equal tie between the following options. None yet, people here just to learn the basics. Some people have some exposure to digital tools and inclusion challenges, and a few have hands-on experience applying digital tools with farmers. So a real spread amongst everyone. So I think we'll end the poll there, but thank you to everyone who's answered that. I think you may need to remember to close the results box yourself. But now let's dive into today's discussion. To start us off, it's my pleasure to introduce Katharina Schroeder, Senior Agriculture Economist at the World Bank, notable specialist in digital agriculture, and co-author of the 2021 landmark report, What's Cooking? Digital Transformation of the Agri-Food System. So Katharina, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Naomi, for the kind introduction. I would also like to thank you for inviting me to the session. And as I'm sharing the screen, you can see the slides, correct? Just confirming. Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
wonderful. So I was asked to set the stage. And the way I decided to approach this, as the digital technologies and overall, and AI more recently, are reshaping the global agri-food system, it is important to understand the pathways through which the change takes place, how exactly they are affecting the food system, but also understand what needs to be done to make sure this transformation is both sustainable and equitable. And this is what I would like to focus on today. So there is a big responsibility that the agri-food system faces. It needs to feed soon to be 10 billion people and do so in climate and environmentally friendly manner. However, there are, as we all know, there are plenty of challenges. So there are inefficiencies everywhere along the value chains, as Naomi mentioned at the start. When with regards to the adoption of digital technologies, agricultural sector is lagging the most. The emissions are the highest in agricultural sector with close to 29% contribution overall. And while there is overabundance of food in many parts of the world, there are still over 800 million people that are undernourished worldwide. So distribution of that food is far from perfect. So why this is happening? The reason for this is that the global agri-food system is large and complex. It has many actors. So we have over 8 billion consumers, close to 600 million farmers, and then millions upon millions of processors, retailers, wholesalers, and so on. So there are plenty of those who participate in the food system. Why this is important also for the digital transformation. Whenever these people interact among themselves, this creates transaction costs. And the more so every transaction has a cost to it. And in the agri-food system, whenever you're trying to find business partners, determine sales conditions, the quality of your product, try to negotiate the prices or return policies, this all creates the transaction costs. And the more value addition that happens from the product that's produced till it comes to the shelf, the higher is the level of the transaction costs. And naturally for smaller producers, like for example, smallholder farmers, these transaction costs could be overbearing, and they might exclude them from the markets. As the result, within the agri-food system, what these high transaction costs and information asymmetry, when different parties might not have the same information about, for example, quality of the product, about the price. So what does it lead to? So it's limiting consumer choices. It changes farmers' incentives. For example, if they cannot sell the higher quality product at the higher price, so they're not rewarded for whatever they are doing, reduces access to the markets, reduces policy targeting, among other things. What does it have to do with digital transformation? Data and digital technologies are transforming the agri-food systems by overcoming these constraints that are rising because of the transaction costs and information asymmetries. And this is driven by the ability to collect, use, and analyze massive amounts of data that's also machine readable, which is very important for the AI. So that's from one side. And from another side is the emergence of digital platforms that are changing the business models in the agri-food system. So currently, there are 500,000 data points that are produced on farm daily. And I paused a little bit because when we were, this is one of the points we were making in the report that Naomi referred to, which was published, 3 years ago. And at that time, the number of data points produced on the farm was about 100,000. So today we're already talking about 500,000 of data points on farm. And by 2030, the experts predict that it will be over 4 million data points. So there is a massive amount of information that's created on farm daily. And what it does, there is also, in addition to the information produced and data produced on farm, there is data produced all over the supply chain. So in this context, we're witnessing the new revolution in agriculture. And I don't know how familiar you are with the previous agricultural revolutions, but the key things, for example, green revolution, the way those revolutions were happening, they were starting on farm, and then they were moving along the value chain. So the origination point has always been on farm. The difference with the digital revolution is profoundly, so the revolution takes place, currently the digital one is profoundly different in a sense that the change does not just happen on farm. It happens all the way along the value chain. So it happens at the farm, it happens at the retail, happens at the processing level where all the data is created. Because the digital transformation, in those contexts where digital transformation matures, the data explodes. So much data is generated, it explodes. This is where AI comes in. And agriculture is particularly suitable for generative AI, magic, as I call it, because it has many different complex tasks that involve different data types. So for example, there are images, satellite imagery, plant disease photographs, so on. There's text data, so crop research papers, weather reports. Then there is also various sensor data that measure soil parameters, temperature readings, and so on. And the strength of generative AI is that it has the ability to identify patterns in these unstructured data sets. So bringing all this data together, you can now test different scenarios using all this different data to come up with different solutions and once again, run the different scenarios. And that's what we are seeing when it comes to the applications of the AI in agriculture. This could be a good placeholder to say that we just published our new report on the AI in agriculture, and we actually will be launching the report next Tuesday, so please tune in. So it actually has the highest collection of use cases on the use of AI in agriculture up to date. Of course, the field changes so rapidly, it's hard to catch up. But the testament to the potential of AI is that we see the massive investments coming into this field. So the investments overall in the AI in agriculture in 2023 was valued at 1.5 billion, and by 2023, the projections are that it will reach 10.2 billion. And the overall investment in generative AI, there are different types of AI. So generative AI has shifted from less than 5 billion in 2019 to over 20 billion in 2023. And once again, agriculture is a very opportune sector for the use of AI. So with all this, as a result of this digital transformation, including the AI transformation, we are seeing the improvements when it comes to the efficiency, equity, and environmental sustainability of the agri-food systems. So efficiency is reached through both on-farm and off-farm. So on-farm, we see the improvements in allocative and technical efficiency. On-farm, we are seeing better access to markets, better improved price discovery, better matching of buyers and selling. So basically what digital technologies do, they are making the agricultural markets thicker. So where it makes it easier to do the transactions, and transactions are more transparent. There are also benefits to the equity in terms of the inclusion of the opportunities to include smallholder farmers and marginalized populations in the value chains, in the markets, better access to credit and insurance, at least the opportunity of the access to credit and insurance. And we see this emerging in some countries, better targeting of the policies, something we work a lot at the World Bank, and then benefits to the environmental sustainability. Some better monitoring, decreased food waste, and so on. So, and we are seeing a lot of the impacts on the ground as well. So impacts are still, and this is something we struggle a little bit at the World Bank, because relatively speaking, digital revolution is a newer one. So the impacts, we're still measuring them, but they're coming in, and actually AI also helps to measure some of these impacts. So in terms of what we are seeing on the ground, I wanted to pick the example of the AI-powered extension services. When it comes to the AI, they are probably the most promising case of the use of the AI. And so the reason is that for the first time, the AI can take all the data that the countries have been collecting, so about who the farmers are, where they farm, what they're producing, what the quality of soil, overlay that with any research and development data that has been done in the country, and then you can use all this information in the AI to bring the personalized advisory to the farmers. Of course, and this is something we'll talk about in the second half of the presentation, if the countries have done their homework, if they build the foundations for these AI-powered systems. But in any case, I wanted to bring in two examples. One is from Digital Green. It's a pioneer in the AI-powered extension services to the farmers. So they are now reaching over 2 million farmers, focusing, I believe, on 40 crops in 6 languages. And they showcase over 38% improvements in yields. The cost of the extension for farmer dropped from $35 to 35 cents, and the additional income per hectare is close to $600. Another similar service is the virtual agronomist. They have a smaller scale. They focus on Africa, and they cover 200,000 plots. And the scale of the crop coverage is also lower, but the trend in terms of the results is similar. So yields are increasing, so we see a twofold yield increase, and the profits are also growing, so almost 5 times over in terms of the yield growth. From our side at the World Bank, we also see that the promise of digital transformation is reflected in the demand from our client countries. So as you can see, in the last about 6 years, the number of agricultural projects that have a digital component and the investment amount has drastically increased. And so now we have over 65 projects in 44 plus countries with the overall investment in digital agriculture at over 1.3 billion. And I must say that when I started at the bank in 2000, I think it was 2016, I remember as a personal anecdote, at that time, my manager was sort of pushing the digital agriculture to the clients, not pushing, but sort of telling about the promise of digital agriculture and what it can do for the improvements, you know, for the farming sector, for the value chains. And there's been a reluctance from the clients to take on. Now the picture is absolutely and completely different. Almost every Ministry of Agriculture we go to, their first request is around the digital agriculture project, because countries are seeing the benefit of digital agriculture. And the focus is a lot on building the foundations for the digital transformation. And as one interesting fact is that one of the biggest interventions that are thought by the clients these days focuses on e-extension services, including AI-powered extension services. So this is sort of a low-hanging fruit to reach the farmers to improve, you know, the efficiencies and profitability. So with that, all that rosy picture that I just drew, there's still many risks and uncertainties, and Naomi did mention some of those. And how we address those risks and uncertainties would determine how well this digital transformation spread and how well it would really help the farmers in the least developed countries. So here we see one of the risks I would like to highlight is the risk of digital divide. So at the beginning of the presentation, I said that one of the benefits of the digital transformation is the improved equity. So yes, the spread of the mobile technologies, the internet coverage, it does create an opportunity, and not only opportunity in practice, farmers have better access to the technology and knowledge and everything else, and then AI delivers this personalized advice to the farmers in their local language. So at the same time, the divide we see without digital transformation, so social divide, spatial divide, we see in rural areas where rural areas might be lagging behind urban areas, where countries in the global south are lagging behind North America, Western Europe, and so on. We see the same thing when it comes to the spread of digital technologies. So the digital divide is very real. On this map, we have, this is AI Preparedness Index. So basically it shows that the nations in North America, Western Europe, parts of East Asia demonstrate high level of AI preparedness. But if we look at most of the countries in Africa, parts of South Asia, South America, Southeast Asia, their preparedness levels are pretty low. So what can we do to address the challenges? And there are a set of essential enablers that are required to ensure that the digital transformation in the food systems truly results in this triple E to the fullest, so efficiency, equity, and environmental sustainability. Interestingly enough, so the report we worked on the digital transformation, what's cooking, the one that Naomi mentioned, and the AI report that's coming out now, in most cases, these essential enablers are the same, with the nuance of some cloud computing and changes to foundational data for the AI that are more specific, but overall, they're very similar. So in the remaining 4 minutes, I'll dive into those. So one is, and in our earlier report, we looked at the digital enablers and non-digital enablers. So here I'm kind of blending them together. So for the digital transformation overall, and including the AI specifically, connectivity issues and issues of energy infrastructures are absolutely, absolutely essential. So we see that, as I mentioned, significant digital divide persists, and the internet access lags far behind in rural areas as opposed to urban areas. only 15% of rural Africa has internet access, despite 83% mobile broadband coverage in sub-Saharan Africa. Only 25% use it because of the affordability issue, literacy gaps, poor device access, and so on. For AI, in particular, stable electricity remains absolutely core enabler, but there is a big constraint with that. Over 6 million people in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, lack that access. But the quality of the network determines how well, the digital transformation can take place and the solutions can be implemented. So investments are needed, but they're at the same time, to put a positive spin on this, there are also opportunities because the technologies evolve. So for example, satellite internet, this improves the connectivity pathways in itself, right? So both the usual digital technologies and AI, they can run on the devices without the constant connectivity. So we're seeing that people can use some of these programs in the remote areas without the internet access. So this can be overcome to some extent, but this doesn't take away the truly need to improve connectivity and invest in energy infrastructure. And here I spend a little bit more time, and then I'll just go faster through other enablers and investment focus areas. But here I would like to spend a little bit more time because this is absolutely critical. The access to foundational data and promoting data sharing. So because data is the ingredient for digital transformation overall, it is absolutely essential for the AI transformation because AI feeds on the data. And system needs to be put in place where the different public records, farm records, they are digitized, but they are also follow the common standards where they can be exchanged across, different users. So the investment, and that's, as I mentioned at one point, this is the key entry point for in our dialogue with the clients to build on those foundations for the digital transformation. Just as with the case with the connectivity and energy infrastructure, there are also opportunities to sort of leapfrog some of these requirements because there are many global systems and there's also a lot of experience already how to develop these open data systems and avoid data silos. Just a quick glance, and I know that I'm at time, what it takes to develop an AI advisory stack. So you can see, and that's what I was saying, for the AI advisory stack, those countries that did their homework, they have all this, not all of them, but many of these systems in place. So they have soil maps, weather data, they have farm registries, and this is when you can build on more advanced technologies. What other enablers? And let me take 2 more minutes. So data privacy, ownership, security, that sort of comes with building the foundational data. The digital markets tend to have the tendency towards market competition. So having policies that address this lack of competition in the digital markets is essential. Very important to support development of digital payment systems to make sure that the markets function. Digital entrepreneurship ecosystem is also very important because there might be data, but the solutions come from the entrepreneurs and the AgTech who develop the different solutions that are also localized to the context of where farmers operate. Related to entrepreneurship is important to invest in digital literacy and human capital. And this is a sort of a twofold issue. One issue is that we need to educate the farmers and the users of digital technologies to know how to use them. That's one thing. Another thing, we also need to train a new generation of data scientists and engineers who also understand agriculture. And there is a very big shortage of those specialists who combine the two. So they, for example, understand AI, but they also understand agriculture. So this area is also very important. Public-private partnerships. So we saw this in the digital transformation overall. We see this even more when it comes to the AI. So public sector cannot build this or sort of move forward the AI transformation by themselves. private sector cannot do it with the support of the public. There's always research community, there are innovators, and the best use cases we have comes when those public-private partnerships are working at the country level. Additional policies might be needed to support those that are the most marginalized. So, and AI helps to bypass some of that. So, for example, before we were talking that you need to create content in the local languages, for example, for the farmers. Now AI solves that kind of almost automatically, so that the farmers that are in remote community who don't speak, certain like popular languages or widespread languages, that they have access to the information. And the last one is, and this is also what we work on a lot, is the countries need to have sort of a holistic approach to digital transformation. They need to understand what are the gaps, what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths of the countries. They need to understand where should they focus their resources, what is the most essential into the development of, into not developing, but supporting digital transformation, because at the end of the day, it's driven by the public sector. And this is my last slide to close. We are working, for example, with the countries on developing digital agriculture roadmaps. These are country-owned strategy investment documents that help the countries, that work on the national strategies, agricultural strategies, and then help to position digital transformation within those strategies for a more successful path. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katarina. That's an amazing amount of information to fit into a short presentation, and we'll be circulating the slides after the event. We have one moment for maybe one question, but as I don't see any in the chat box, maybe I will ask one. Katarina, you mentioned countries being very keen to embrace digital agricultural projects, especially on extension services. Are there any countries that stand out to you in that regard?
Thank you. That's a good question. I actually meant to include a slide, but then I removed it on the regional distribution of the investments. So Sub-Saharan Africa is probably a champion in terms of the investments that go overall in the digital transformation. But then, of course, we have countries in every region that are particular champions. So as I was sort of looking at the slide, I thought I should mention. So in MENA region, so Middle East, North Africa, Morocco stands out, and they have been a very early champion. So even when I joined the bank, already at that time, Morocco was pushing for a digital project. Turkey is a big project. That's in ECA region, Latin American, Caribbean. They are a little bit slower adopters, surprisingly, given that these are mainly middle-income countries. But right now, almost every single country focuses on digital. And just recently, we had a board meeting for the Peru project that is fully focused on digital agriculture. So ministry prioritizes digital agriculture completely. So it's I must say this is a very exciting time because there is so much demand, and it's also really interesting to see how we can support governments to implement this support structure on the ground.
Thanks, Katarina. You've set up nicely a couple of the countries we'll be spotlighting a little bit later in the event as well. So thank you again for your presentation. I see some comments saying it was brilliant. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're now going to have a run of 3 presentations before another short Q&A, but please do keep posting your questions in the chat so speakers can answer them as we go along. But now we'll turn to Simon Mulwer, the Director of ICT and Digital Agriculture at KALRO. Simon's going to talk to us about KALRO's digital innovations and their practical applications for Kenyan farmers. So Simon, we look forward to hearing your insights when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Naomi. So allow me to share my screen. Just confirm when the sharing is on. Are the slide visible?
Yes, can see it now.
Yeah, thank you, Naomi, and thank you all participants, and most importantly for the opportunity to present in this AgriTech for All Advanced Inclusive Digital Farming Solutions. So I'll just make a presentation on KALRO's digital innovations and how they align to the inclusivity, especially on the agricultural ecosystem in Kenya. So first, to begin, as an institution, we had to come up with an objective of why we wanted to undertake the data and digital agenda. And for that case, we had an objective to increase agricultural productivity and, of course, to build resilience to climate change risks for smallholder farmers, because we appreciate the changes that come with climate change and how they affect our smallholder farmers. Now, to begin, we had to come up with an approach, because for every digitization, especially in agriculture, you need a roadmap that you can be able to follow so that you are able to reach the targets that you would want when it comes to digitization. So for us, we started this journey a while back around 2013. And for us, we began by first acquiring what we call the big data platforms, or access to disruptive technologies. And this essentially meant coming up with an high-performance computing environment. But then that was not the end of it all. After we got the infrastructure, then the next thing we had to worry about was, how do we then go and take all the research that is being produced by KALRO, where we have over 600 researchers who are working on crops and animal research. So we integrated the ICT aspect with research and some emerging tools, specifically focusing on precision ag. And for that, we had to apply digitization. One, because we had the data, we needed to turn that data into a service. And that's why we are seeing that we said we digitize the information and then turn that data into a service and develop what we call use cases. So in this case, use cases are products and services that can then be consumed by the various stakeholders, because research in its own, once it has been published, then the researchers stop at that point. But then ICT or data and digital aspects can come and leverage on that existing data and transform it to better use cases that are easier consumable by farmers. So after we develop these use cases, like we'll be able to show in the coming slides, we also needed to come up with an aspect of capacity building where we create awareness for the various stakeholders, not only the farmers, but even policy. And this was a matter of training the stakeholders to know what we have come up with. And up to now, we are still doing what we call scaling. This is more of still emphasizing on the need for farmers to adopt this. Now, to achieve such kind of an ecosystem, we had a vision for inclusive digital agriculture, where we established that to undertake digital agriculture, it was not just a matter of coming up with tools from an ICT perspective, but rather it was necessary to create an ecosystem that encompasses all key players. So for us, from this high-level diagram, I just want to quickly run through it. You can see from the bottom where KALRO is, we are known for e-services, data sharing, and digitization of what we call technology, innovations, and management practices. And also we undertook one of the most aggressive farmer registration exercise, where we were able to register currently over 7 million farmers. And to be able to offer these services, we also saw the need to integrate what we were doing with the agtechs. And these agtechs were coming in to be able to offer digital platforms, agripreneur, digital literacy, information dissemination. We thought of governments and development partners to provide with funding and, of course, governance and coordination. Then the big data infrastructure itself, or the high-performance computing, was to host what we call the e-services, among other services for weather advisory services. And then at the DAT infrastructure, if you look on your left, we came up with around 4 entities that were supposed to aggregate the various disruptive agricultural technologies. And one of them categories was productivity. So we were looking at the key agritechs that are within the hydroponic, mechanization, let's say fleet extension, we have market linkages, financial services, and data analytics. So we targeted agtechs that can provide these services to farmers and other stakeholders, because as a government, we appreciated we cannot be able to form an ecosystem on our own. So that is just an high level of how the inclusive approach was achieved through involving the PPPs or the public-private partnerships. Now, moving on to what Kenya has built, and as KALRO, we needed to address around 4 key questions. And the first was who, which, what, and where. When we talk of who, we needed to be able to understand if you are going to give interventions, who are you targeting? So that's why we embarked and registered over 7 million plus farmers. And like our keynote speaker said, it's important to understand which data points. And for us, we've collected thousands of data points from names, ID number, geolocations, geoshapes of the farms. What crops are you growing? Are you using rain-fed or irrigation? Then from there, we needed to know which value chains these farmers are practicing. What is the size of their parcels? Or what enterprises are they having? And if someone has 10 acres, are they using the 10 acres for only one value chain, or is it split? Then key important factor was the historical weather patterns, or even the current soil characteristics. So we also embarked on creating what we call a digital soil map. Then where it's in terms of we can encourage farmers to produce, but then where will they be able to take their produce? So we meant availing markets. And for that, we created a system that shows markets across the country, around 235 markets. And this system is online and you can give access. Moving on to what we've still done as KALRO, we went on to create some digital solutions. We appreciate the need for farmers to be able to know about weather. So we created a weather platform in cooperation with our meteorological department. And that application is giving weather advisory across the country. And also, in the last few months, we've also tried to bring up the weather platform to have a component of artificial intelligence. And for that, we brought in a bot where stakeholders or anyone who can access the system is free online. You can just type the location of where you are and the bot will be able to return the weather conditions in terms of weather. We have cloud cover, wind speed, temperature, and then this is important for farming enterprises. Again, to address our questions of who, where, when, and what, we came up with a tool that we call the KALRO Selector. This tool allows you, using your GPS, you just need to activate GPS from your phone, and based on where you are standing or based on your selections, you can be able to know which crops you can grow from any region, from any specific region of the country. And again, we've also tried to onboard a bot for the same functionality, and some of these services are still under development. From there, we have what we call the digital climate advisory services. We appreciate after you know all these stakeholders and where they are, you also need to be able to communicate things like agronomic advisories. So for that, we are reaching more than 5 million farmers with advisories on markets or good agricultural practices, pests and disease alerts. And we send these advisories all throughout from the cropping calendar. Since we know Farmer X or Farmer Simon comes from this location, they are growing these value chains, we can tell them when it's going to rain, the amount of rainfall, the kind of crops that they can grow, the specific varieties that they can do during any specific cropping calendar. Now, to understand why we did this, we had a future or a plan that was focused towards establishing a DPI infrastructure for the government. So for that, we had to create what we call the agricultural digital datasets. And for that, like I mentioned, we have datasets that are covering farmer registry, commercial farms, service providers like agro-dealers and stockists. We have FPOs, or these are producer organization, SACCOs, market registry, weather data, teams or technology innovation and management practices, which also carry the agronomic registry. We have registry. We have a call center that is able to surface farmer requests. The call center is managed by agronomists who are able to respond to the calls from all the farmers across the country. And where possible, they can transfer those phone calls within KALRO extensions and they can interact with a specific scientist. we have climate research repository, we have soil registry. Now, from a perspective, if you're able to put all these data sets together, then you will be able to have what we call a big data infrastructure, carrying data sets that would be very critical, both for farmers and other stakeholders within the agricultural data ecosystem. Now, to appreciate that our countries, and especially from Africa, we are having an issue when it comes to extension service. So for Kenya, we thought of a model that could be able to improve on the last mile access or provision of services. For this, we came up with what we are calling the agripreneur model. So this model is to empower, the goal is to empower youth-led businesses, act as last mile agricultural service providers. Our approach is to provide bundled services. So you can imagine someone who is able to give all these services access to inputs, credit linkages. Now for that, we had to take them through a training and empower them with these skills. So the training encompasses a bootcamp, an incubation and commercialization phase. At bootcamp, we train them on the various aspects. If it's advisory services, is it credit and credit linkages? At incubation, we try and incubate the ideas that they might have to come us with businesses that can provide last mile options. Commercialization, we are saying that once they are gone through the bootcamp and their businesses have gone through incubation, then they can go and do what we are calling business creation for the youth. And we are targeting to have around 18,000 agripreneurs across the country. As you know, Kenya, the smallest unit of administration is a ward. And at the ward level, we are targeting to have around 5 to 7 agripreneurs per ward that are able to interact with farmers every day. Now, why an agripreneur? Is we need to close the last mile service gap between farmers and access to inputs, credit, and markets. We need to spur youth employment and reduce rural-urban migration. We also need to accelerate the adoption of these technologies, because if we continue doing research and there's no acceleration in terms of having farmers access to these tools or technologies, then we will still be left behind. We also needed to strengthen the community interest groups, farmer producer organization, and SACCOs for collective marketing and finance. We appreciate the farmers are doing quite a lot, but without these kind of organizations, they are not able to access credit or even have a uniform way of marketing their produce. Now, an agripreneur, the role of these agripreneurs will be, one, to do farmer mobilization. We appreciate that we've registered 7 million farmers. We need to ensure that farmers continuously keep registering or giving what we call dynamic data. So for the agripreneurs, they are the ones who will be doing farmer mobilization. They will offer extension advisory, where they will do aggregation services, market linkages, data and digital. We need to ensure that they can continuously keep updating the farmer register, and thus enabling us to have access to dynamic data for credit purposes, credit score. We need to come up with such kind of innovations which will require data. There is service diversification. If agripreneurs are trained and given the necessary tools, they can conduct soil testing at the same time, generate revenue for themselves. We have community integration. So we want to collaborate with ward cooperatives. These are county administrations, business accelerators, and mentors at the grassroots to ensure commercialization of these agripreneurs. Now, as a government, we appreciate that we have a lot of data sets, but also we needed to ensure that we have a way of sharing these data sets. That's why we formed the data sharing platform. And I think from the keynote speech, I would want to appreciate that this platform was a joint collaboration between KALRO and the Digital Green Foundation, where we were able to come up with it. And we leverage it on international standards. But again, to ensure that we are able to share data, to be able to connect and share this data, we needed to observe the Kenya Data Protection Act, which clearly guides on how data should be accessed and stored. And for that, we had to get the necessary certifications. We also had to observe to the Statistics Act of data collection here in Kenya. Where necessary to share this data with other entities, we had to come up with memorandum of understanding and data sharing agreements But most importantly, because we are collecting farmer data, we had to get farmer consent and ensure that the data that is collected, it's already, we have consent, and that we cannot be collecting these data without the required approvals from the data owner. Now, as I conclude, I want to just appreciate that and say we have achieved the following and why it matters. So one, we have what we call the big data infrastructure. This infrastructure is important for hosting all the available data sets and maintaining a government-led infrastructure that various stakeholders can host their data for free. We have registered over 7 million farmers and still counting. We are currently doing soil mapping across the country, which when we combine the soil data, the farmer records, the weather data, we should be able to give you one complete advisory per farmer and not based on region. We have the KALRO, or the Kenya Agro Advisory Observatory Platform, which gives weather data. We have developed more than 65 mobile apps online, which have now been merged to the Kenya e-extension platform, where you can access all the value chains and see step by step on how to grow them. We have the Kenya Agro Advisory Call Center, where farmers can call in, dial in, it's a toll-free, and they can get advisory. We have the DCAS advisory system, which sends messages to farmers. We appreciate that farmers might not have access to internet, so we are using the feature phone or the SMS function and send these messages for free. And last but not least, we have the KALRO selector, which I mentioned is able to give you advisory across any region of the country. Now, some lessons and recommendations that we have been able to learn or would be pushing forward to anyone who wants to undertake a digital data and digital journey. We established that it's very key to ensure that you have the relevant key stakeholders within the digital journey. Capacity building and training, both for stakeholders, this is farmers, or even ensuring that your own internal teams, like the keynote speech mentioned, you need to train your own in-house teams with data science, maybe the latest artificial intelligence trainings. We needed to ensure that we have robust data infrastructure and management. The fourth one, we needed to ensure that the solutions are sustainable, scalable, and adaptable. If you provide solutions that are not scalable, then you will not be able to reach your intended users. 5, policy and regulatory frameworks. When it comes to dealing with data, you need to be able to have the backing and the support of the data commissioners. People can call and they can guide you when interacting with data. And 6, it is important to have not just monitoring and evaluation, but a participatory monitoring and evaluation approach that involves all the stakeholders that are required in this engagement of coming up with the digital infrastructure. Last but not least, I would want to say that as I conclude, that Kenya has the infrastructure, data, and the momentum to succeed. What we now need are strategic partnerships, scalable innovations, and inclusive models that ensure no farmer is left behind. And like we say in Kenya, asante, meaning thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Simon. A lot of rich work there, and some very cool bot examples too. A lot of love in the chat for you and your work. Moving on swiftly, next we have Chioma Ezunaka and James Kayam from the UK-AgriTech Centre. Chioma and James will share insights from the DataB project on building UK-Brazil-West Africa collaborations for climate smart digital agriculture and precision farming. So over to you to start, Chioma.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. I think James is going to be starting first, so I'll hand over to James.
Thanks, Chioma.
Yeah. Do you want me to share for you?
Are our slides loaded up, or do I need to load them up?
I'm just going to do that for you now.
Perfect. Thanks, Chioma.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from the UK. My name is James Kayam, and I'm a International Business Development Manager at the UK-AgriTech Centre. Today, my colleague and Chirma and I will be sharing some insights from our Data-B project, a collaboration between the UK, Brazil, and West Africa, specifically focused on precision agriculture and digital farming. We'll look at who we are at the UK-AgriTech Centre, how we drive innovation, and key learnings from this project. So the UK-AgriTech Centre is the UK's largest agri-tech organisation and funded by government through Innovate UK. We combine expertise, facilities and business support to help companies grow by developing their solutions domestically and internationally, attracting long-term investment. Next slide, please. Our mission is clear, to accelerate the development and deployment of agri-tech innovation. Our vision is an agricultural sector that's innovative, resilient and sustainable, and among the most dynamic in the world. Next slide, please. The UK-AgriTech Centre delivers strong cross-sector collaboration. We take a systems-wide approach to challenges, and our partners span the entire value chain from startups, farmers, academics, investors, government, trade bodies, processors and retailers. The breadth ensures innovation flows seamlessly from lab to field to market. Being part of our community can support business growth plans and save time and money in getting connected and scoping out opportunities. We really see ourselves as the bridge between government, academia and industry. Next slide, please. By acting as the connector, we link those who are developing solutions on the academic and research side of things to those who are facing the challenges in the agricultural and food supply chain. We find that's the best way to work, as we are developing the solution. We're developing the solutions around a problem rather than the other way around. Next slide, please. So how do we support innovation? We help with funding support, so we can help companies identify and apply for funded opportunities. Oh, sorry, I think we've gone ahead one, Gemma, there. Yep, sorry. Project delivery. So we don't just advise, we deliver on projects as well. Our project managers oversee complex projects, often through multi-partner consortia, while ensuring milestones are met and outcomes are achieved. We provide state-of-the-art facilities so innovators can move from concept to deployment with confidence. Testing and trialing. So innovation needs validation. We give companies access to specialist equipment and controlled environments to test their solutions. This reduces risk, accelerates adoption, and provides the evidence funders and investors want to see. And we also, on the commercial farm network, we offer real-world testing through our network of commercial farms. Innovators can see how their technology performs in practice, whether it's robotics, sensors, or AI systems under real farming conditions. We're then able to disseminate this by hosting a number of events throughout the calendar year to drive adoption in the sector. Next slide, please. So our key thematic areas span sort of 5 focus areas around controlled environments, robotics and automation, advanced sensors, AI and data systems, and engineering biology. These are technologies shaping the future of farming, and they align with the UK industrial strategy. Next slide, please. So in terms of what we can offer, we offer world-class facilities and expertise. We have over 100 in-house experts covering everything from animal health and welfare to crop science to aquaculture to precision robotics and AI. We bring together over 250 companies and organizations in our ecosystem, and we've delivered millions of pounds worth of projects. We also have 43 research and innovation facilities and a network of farms that cover the width and breadth of UK. Next slide, please. Just a quick mention on some of our international work. We host a lot of inward visits to some of our facilities in the UK. And moving on to the next slide, we've worked internationally over the past year in countries like Brazil, Argentina, Spain, Ghana, Nigeria, New Zealand, and an upcoming mission to Canada. Next slide, please. So before I hand over to Chioma, I just want to give you some background on the project that we're talking about today. This was a scoping project from Innovate UK called the Climate Smart Agricultural Partnership. This project connects the UK, Brazil, and Africa, specifically Ghana and Nigeria, to promote climate smart agriculture. It focuses on 3 main goals: increasing productivity and incomes, building resilience to climate change, and reducing or removing greenhouse gas emissions. Running from 2024 to 2026, it has funded scoping projects such as ours, innovation awards and travel grants, and it supports the UN Sustainability Development Goals and the Paris Climate Accord Agreement, while opening new markets for innovative businesses. So I've put a QR code there that highlights all of the scoping projects that were involved in this fund, ours being one of them, which was called DataBee. So I'll hand over to Chairman now, who's going to give you an overview of that project. Thanks very much, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Okay, so like James said, and a lot of other people have spoken. Well, first, let me just start by saying thank you for the opportunity. I've already learned so much from all the other speakers. I'm inspired. I wish I could just sit and listen, but I'm happy to share about our project. So DataBee was one of the 12 scoping projects that we won to understand what the challenges in the market were. So our project objectives was to understand the real challenges the farmers in Ghana and Nigeria were facing, looking at their systems, tools, practices, and outputs, and also especially in the socioeconomic context and climate context. And it was in partnership with Brazil, because we identified from the beginning, as part of the Innovate project design, that Brazil had similar situations with Nigeria, so we could apply some of the learnings across the countries. And it was also to assess the gaps and get a sense of the size of the market demand for the solutions that exist, to identify the opportunities of one or a combination of possible solutions, whether it's direct technology transfer for things that are working, localization of technologies to suit the context in the West African countries, or new products development, or possibly even some form of mentorship or knowledge exchange. So our approach was very market-led and immersive. We wanted to make sure that we're hearing directly from the people who matter the most, the people for whom the solutions were going to be built, and the different stakeholders in the value chain. So we started by sending out surveys to different stakeholder groups to capture a broad range of perspectives. And then we followed up with virtual interviews to some of the respondents, just to get a lot more context around their responses, and then to dive deeper into specific challenges and opportunities. But I think the most valuable part of our research was the in-country visit to Nigeria and Ghana, where we had the chance to visit farms, research centers, innovation hubs, host workshops and innovation conversations, roundtable conversations. And we got firsthand information about what their challenges were, and we put all of this into a combination of results, which I'll be sharing next. So from the survey, the data highlighted that there were 3 major challenges, very similar to what Katrina has already spoken about. But the first and the major one was funding, and farmers consistently pointed out that access to finance was a significant barrier. The second was lack of access to technology. So even when solutions were existing, they were often out of reach for most producers due to the cost. And then the third was the very clear need for training and skills development that again has come across severally in the conversation so far. Now, another very interesting insight was that the private sector was the largest group of respondents, giving an indication that this were the people who were most interested in and actively looking for solutions. Okay. So also a summary of some of the key agricultural challenges that we got from our insights was limited connectivity and lack of access to relevant data for helping farmers to make data-driven decisions, whether it's available of irrigation water or of irrigation facilities, adequate knowledge for pest and disease management practices that affect their crop health and their yields, and also very limited availability of mechanized farm tools, which made their productivity quite low even when they had good soil or good water. And there was also a lot of conversation around significant post-harvest losses. So even when there was good yield, the farmers will lose a significant portion of their outputs before it reaches the markets, leading to even lower returns for their investments and making it a very high-risk sector to invest in. But in addition to these key agricultural challenges, we also had key insights to help us understand the context. And one was the cost barrier. So because in West Africa, farming is still predominantly smallholder subsistence farming with very low margins and high risk and high post-harvest losses, farmers operate at subsistence levels. So it's almost impossible for them to generate sufficient income to invest in solutions that could increase their productivity or enhance their efficiency. And then there was a clear case for poor infrastructure and a highly fragmented network. And I was super excited to see that Kenya has done a lot to at least paint a picture of what the entire system should look like and start to develop the solutions, but we did not see that yet. So the fragmented network made it difficult for you to have cross-knowledge sharing across even people who were doing better, even in similar regions. And third, and very significant, was the security risks. And I know I don't need to say too much. We've heard so much about it from the media already. However, despite the challenges, the opportunities still exist, and opportunities are inherent in the challenges. And there's a clear case for technology to accelerate the solutions that needs to be implemented from seed selection to market access, and to deliver real scalable, profitable solutions. However, it's very important as well that these solutions are developed in the right context with the people who are the intended users in integration to the value chain, because it's not going to be felt across the chain if it's just for one set of people. And some of the things that we put in our reports that is important to highlight here is that maybe first, the first step should be to deliver projects that give immediate benefits in a way that builds trust and introduce people to the idea of collaborative innovation and working, and start to build from there. I'll hand over back to James to conclude on our presentation. James?
Thanks, Shara. So yeah, just to say, from our scoping project, you can download the final report there if you are interested to learn more. There should be a QR code on the screen there to download that report. We've also got 2 more projects that have been rolled out in Ghana following this scoping visit. So we've got some trials started with the University of Ghana, and also a project around AI-powered systems using satellite data around to forecast banana disease outbreaks. And just to wrap up, if you do want to know more about the UK-AgriTech Centre, we've got lots of reports, brochures that covers lots of different areas of agri-tech in the UK. And we are also on LinkedIn, so please do add us on there. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Gioma. And maybe if I can fly my little British flag, I can say, for those of you who don't know, Innovate UK is a similar initiative to Horizon Europe. But moving along, next we turn to a partnership between the International Fund for Agricultural Development, better known as IFAD, and LNET Global. Gladys Morales and Mara Bellestrini are going to talk to us about AgroWeb3, which brings affordable digital identity and traceability tools to small-scale farmers, and the GEF8 market access window, which is a funding program that supports countries and value chain actors in adopting digital and geospatial tools. So ladies, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. I'm going to try to share my screen. Naomi, if you can confirm when.
I can't see the presentation in presentation view, but I can see your screen. Yes, perfect.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. It has been a really enriching conversation, and I really appreciated all the presentations and the data, in particular the one shared by Katerina. We have common partners in Africa with the Digital Green, and in Latin America with Hello Tractor or Hola Tractor. So it's good to see that these solutions are being recognized, and it will be great to see us working together to help scaling them up. So as Naomi said, we're going to be talking about AgroWeb3 and the most recent grant in which we have been working, which is a GEF8 funded grant to facilitate market access for small-scale farmers. So this is the, Mara is going to be describing AgroWeb3. We just want to clarify that AgroWeb3 is not a platform, it's not an app, it is a protocol for digital wallets. We are not reinventing digital wallets. What we are doing is making them accessible and affordable for small-scale farmers. And after that, I will go into market access, the market access window grant, what it does, what it intends to achieve, how it was born, and what we aim to deliver for small-scale farmers. With no further ado, I'm going to give the floor now to Mara. Mara, over to you.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you all for inviting us to participate here. Just like my colleague Gladys mentioned, I truly enjoyed the other presentations, and I did take some notes from Katerina's presentation because I think it really serves as a perfect framing for explaining AgroWeb3. She talked about challenges like high transaction cost, information asymmetries, the challenge of the need for common standards, data privacy, and ownership. And these are some of the pillars of the joint partnership that we have with IFAD and IDB and LNET in the development of AgroWeb3. So AgroWeb3 is a very innovative initiative that was basically designed to give smallholder farmers a fair chance to participate in the digital economy. So as we know today, most farmers are excluding from global agriculture value chains because it is expensive and complicated to prove their business credentials, such as credit history, product quality, non-deforestation, etc. So AgroWeb3 wants to address that. It wants to create a simple, a secure protocol for digital wallets and digital wallets ecosystems that allows farmers to instantly verify and share trusted information about their land, their harvests, certifications with buyers, financiers, with different stakeholders. So let's go to the next slides to dig in a little bit more. Okay, so this project, AgroWeb3, it builds on our blockchain infrastructure. LNET is an nonprofit organization that orchestrates blockchain infrastructures. In particular, we have an open source L1 blockchain infrastructure that has been carefully designed for compliance, for trust, and is the preferred platform for institutional purposes, especially development projects, inclusion projects. So AgriWeb 3 builds on this infrastructure and is creating a common digital standard so that all participants, from farmers to banks to supply chain actors, can easily exchange data. And in this way, the project not only reduces the costs and barriers that have kept smallholder farmers on the margins, but also give them ownership and control of their data. And this empowers them because it gives them opportunities in trade, in finance, in sustainability, and so on. So basically, in terms of financial and digital inclusion, digital wallets serve as secure, decentralized identities for farmers who often lack formal banking or government systems, right? So farmers can store in their wallets verifiable credentials, like imagine like IDs, land titles, or skill certificates, and ownership tokens, land, equipment, what they produce, in these wallets, which are interoperable, which means that you can share them across wallets and share them with third parties. So this means that unbanked or underbanked farmers can participate in informal markets, access loans, engage in digital finance. This creates, of course, trust and traceability through these verifiable credentials. You can even store in these wallets using verifiable credentials health records, farm outputs, certifications. For example, you can store compliance evidence that you are not engaging in deforestation, and this can be used to comply with existing regulations and so on. But also by allowing this instant verification, basically what you're doing is, as the slide is showing, reducing the dependence with intermediates. You're reducing paperwork, and also because blockchain information can be audited and traceable, you also reduce fraud and data asymmetries. The important thing about tokenization is that you can also, through tokenization, you can create intangible assets. You can bring them in a wallet and use them for liquidity. For example, you can land plots, equipment, seeds, harvest, even carbon credits, for example, can be stored in wallets as ownership tokens. And with these, farmers basically are gaining proof of ownership. And this gives them the ability to trade or even to use this as collaterals, which is very important because it creates liquidity in this ecosystem that we know that I seldom they are illiquid, right? So, for instance, for example, a tokenized record of a farmer's tractor ownership can be used as a collateral for a microcredit, and or it can even be traded fractionally. Tokenization allows for fractionalized ownership schemes, which is also very interesting for gaining liquidity. This is creating a whole bust of data that, because there is a common standard to be shared, it creates trust in the ecosystem and it provides reliable data to different stakeholders. But what's important is that the data is owned by the farmers. The farmers don't typically own the data with which credit institutions create their credit scoring and so on. In this case, we're empowering farmers to own the data and to use this data to acquire different benefits such as financing, credits, insurance, tokenization schemes, and so on. Just to finalize, if we can go to the next slide, just to wrap up, I think I've already discussed a lot of the benefits. We are in the benefits slide. Thank you, Gladys. So basically, just to wrap up, by leveraging this blockchain-based digital wallets and interoperability through the protocol that we are creating, This project directly addresses these structural barriers that we have discussed and that have long limited smallholder farmers. So for example, high transaction costs from verifying identity, certifying produce, or accessing finance. These are drastically reduced through using this, because this allows for automating tamper-proof credentials verification and for peer-to-peer transactions, which eliminates the needs for intermediates. And this obviously reduces costs. It eliminates information asymmetries, or they're minimized, because farmers, buyers, financial actors are sharing this trusted, verifiable, real-time information, which builds also transparency and mutual confidence in the ecosystem. And the adoption of common standards and interoperability protocols ensures that different stakeholders, which could be governments, cooperatives, agribusiness, and fintechs, for example, can exchange information without fragmentation. So basically, this is delivering on the promise of Web3 technologies, which is on your data, on your value. And what the protocol intends to do is deliver this for those who need it the most, which can hopefully through this protocol that we are going to make available as digital public infrastructure, which means that it's open, many ecosystem players will adopt it and therefore join this shared trusted ecosystem for the benefit of farmers. Thank you. Back to you, Gladys.
Thank you so much, Mara. So you heard Caterina's presentation, and she was talking about the digital divide, and she was talking also about some of the challenges and the opportunities that we are facing with, with some of the regions of the world, but especially with those communities that are most vulnerable, most marginalized, and also farther away from urban centers. So what AgroWeb3 does in practical terms is that through the use of this protocol and with because it's AgroWeb3 and LNET are also a network of blockchain providers, these providers are bringing these products to small-scale farmers with voice encrypted messages. So we're breaking also the illiteracy barrier. And not only that, it's being provided also in their local languages. So for example, in Peru, it's being provided in Quechua. So based on the success that LNET has and the Inter-American Development Bank have had in Latin America, where over 23 countries have been adopted the protocol that has been developed by the Inter-American Development Bank with over 9 million users. We visited a couple of their projects in Latin America. We met with the governments, particularly in Peru and Argentina, and the outcome was that there was concern about the new EU deforestation regulation and how it was going to affect farmers. The outcome of those meetings is that the regulation is complex. It's intended to minimize deforestation, and it's intended to work mainly with importers so that they adhere to this regulation. The regulation is based on 3 main components. Component number 2 is about data collection and evidence. Component number 2 is based on risk assessments, and component number 3 is based on risk mitigation of this of deforestation. IFAD and partners are not aiming to address the whole complexity of the new EU deforestation regulation. What we aim to do is to equip farmers with the tools necessary to address the first pillar, which is data collection and evidence, so that they can somehow prove compliance with the new EU deforestation regulation. How are we going to do that? We are partnering with the European Space Agency through the Global Development Assistance Program, with the Innovation Lab of the Inter-American Development Bank, with LNET, of course, CIMIT, INRAE, which is, as some of you know, a research center for agricultural economics in France, and the European Institute of Innovation for Sustainability. The total project financing is for $1.8 million, with co-financing of about $118,000. It will be implemented over 24 months. And what we will be doing is that in collaboration with these partners, we will be collecting data and evidence of zero deforestation using satellite and drone images. The images from the drones and the satellites will be processed using AI technology. Once we have collected evidence of zero deforestation, then we will work with governments, certifying agencies, and technology providers. And through the collaboration with LNET, our objective is that the AgriWeb3 protocol will be implemented and adopted. Why the AgriWeb3 protocol? Because as Mara said, through the implementation of the AgriWeb3 protocol, we can make these blockchain certifications both available, affordable, and accessible to small-scale farmers. IDB showed very specific data and evidence of how they're doing this in Latin America. They showed us how, in very practical terms, the cooperatives were paying between $200 and $2,000 for a blockchain certificate, and how that cost was reduced to only 30 to 50 cents per certificate in Latin America. We want to achieve the same thing for Africa and for some of the most distant project participants that we have in our projects. So that's the aim. It's a complex partnership. It's a complex ecosystem, but we aim to reach at least 5,000 smallholder farmers through the Jeff 8 market access window. Thank you, Naomi. We're open to questions if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Gladys. Thanks, Mara. We are rapidly running out of time, so I think we will have to come back to the questions, see what we can do to answer these questions after the event and connect everyone with the speakers today. Sorry about that, everyone, but by all accounts, it was great to listen to the presentations anyway and take them in their fullness. We could continue all day, but I'm afraid there's never enough time. I hope this has given the audience a great insight into the range of work that's happening and some avenues for further exploration. We'll follow up with today's slides and the recording, and all's left to be said is thank you again to all our speakers for this really engaging session and giving us just a taste of the sector's development. We're always interested in improving these experiences, so please do take a moment to fill in the feedback survey. Noted on not enough time for questions, of course. While you're doing that, I'll just hand back to Alex to bring today's session to a close.
Thank you, Naomi. And I would also like to extend my thank you to all the speakers. Thank you, Katerina. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Gladys, Mara, Chioma, and James. A big thank you as well to our colleagues and partners from ISEAL, so both Noemi, but also Laura Monikowska, who has been helping us with delivering the event and all the coordination. Thank you to Alejandra as well from the UNDP Food Systems team, who's on the call and has been helping out. To our interpreters, and of course, a big thank you to all the participants. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your time. And yes, we hope you will be able to join both Evidensia and UNDP FACS future events, and we will be sharing out, as Naomi mentioned, the handout, the recording, the links in an email that you should be receiving within 1 week from today. So thank you again, everyone. Wishing you a great afternoon, a rest of your day, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank